I should have stepped out when we reached my place. I had one hand on the door handle, but her eyes held me there. And when she kept driving, past my street, past the exit, I didn't say a word. I didn't want her to stop. It started like any other late night. Laughter echoing off bar walls, the taste of something strong and sweet on my lips, the ache in my cheeks from smiling too much. She was my friend's older sister, Lena. Off limits, out of reach, but effortlessly magnetic. I'd watched her for years like someone watches a flame, knowing if you get too close, you'll burn, but never quite able to look away. She offered me a ride home because my Uber canceled, and I thought nothing of it. Just a quick drive. A favor. Nothing more. But the second I slid into her car, the air shifted. Her car smelled like vanilla and the faintest trace of cigarette smoke. The windows were down halfway, letting in the late summer breeze, warm and heavy with city lights. Her fingers drummed lightly on the steering wheel, nails painted a deep red that made my stomach flutter. There was music playing, something low, moody, with a bass that settled deep in your chest. She glanced at me with a sideways smirk, one corner of her mouth curling like she knew something I didn't. "You good?" she asked casually, eyes back on the road. "Yeah," I replied too quickly. My voice sounded strange to me, thinner, breathier. I looked straight ahead, avoiding her profile. But the smell of her shampoo, the faint shine on her lips, the way her thigh brushed mine every time she shifted in her seat, it all felt too much. I told myself I was just imagining it. The glances, the way she licked her lips before speaking, the pauses, like she wanted to say something else but didn't. When we pulled up in front of my building, she didn't stop the engine. "You sure you're okay?" she asked again, this time softer. Her voice dropped a register, less playful, more intimate. I nodded. My hand reached for the door, but she just kept staring at me. And then she smiled. Slow, dangerous, like a dare, and kept driving. I didn't ask why. I didn't even look back at my building disappearing in the rear view. My pulse was loud in my ears, but my voice had vanished. Her hand stayed on the gear shift, just inches from mine. The lights outside blurred as we drove deeper into the night, street signs passing like unread invitations. She didn't speak, just glanced over once, her eyes unreadable. I could have stopped her, could have asked where we were going, but I didn't, because some part of me, some hungry, reckless part, didn't want the ride to end. The silence between us wasn't empty, it was charged, like the air before a storm. I kept sneaking glances at her profile, lit by the passing glow of street lamps. Lena didn't speak, didn't explain. She just drove. Left turn, then another. The city began to fade, lights thinning, streets getting quieter, trees replacing buildings. I realized we were heading toward the hills, where the houses got bigger and the roads more winding. And yet, still I didn't ask. My hand stayed in my lap, clenched tight to keep it from doing something stupid, like reaching for hers. She finally spoke, her voice cutting through the hush like warm silk. "Do you ever just not want to go home?" The question hit me harder than I expected. I swallowed. "All the time," I said. My voice cracked on the last word. Her smile was small, but it reached her eyes this time. The music shifted, a slower song, one that made the air inside the car feel heavier, like it was pressing down on my skin. I could feel her glance at me again, could feel the pull of it like gravity. My thighs still barely brushed hers, and the heat where we touched felt almost unbearable now. I shifted slightly. She didn't move away. And then, without warning, she reached forward and turned off the stereo. The silence that followed was louder than the music had ever been. "I'm not taking you home," she said finally, her voice low and certain. And there it was, spoken out loud. The thing we were both pretending not to know. The undercurrent that had been dragging us both beneath the surface since the night started. I should have asked why, should have questioned her. But all I could think about was the way her voice wrapped around those words like a promise. "Okay," I said. Just that. One word. Enough. She turned off the main road, heading up a narrow lane that wound between tall trees. The kind of road that didn't lead anywhere unless you meant to go there. The trees cast long shadows across the windshield, flickering across her face like secrets. And I found myself leaning just a little closer, as if my body had decided to make the choice my mouth couldn't. Eventually, she pulled into a small overlook. You could see the whole city from here, the lights like stars that had fallen and decided to stay. She killed the engine. The quiet was absolute. We sat there, both of us pretending we were just admiring the view. But I could feel it, that tight, electric thing stretching between us, humming in the silence. Her fingers were on her lap now, twirling the edge of her sleeve. Restless. Her breath was slow but shallow, like mine. "I've thought about this," she said softly, her gaze still fixed on the skyline. "More than I should have." My heart flipped so violently I nearly gasped. "What?" I asked, my voice barely there. She finally turned to look at me, and this time she didn't hide it. The heat in her eyes. The ache. "You," she said. And the way she said it, like it was both a confession and a question, undid something in me. I didn't answer. I just looked at her. My breath caught. My skin tingled. Every part of me screamed to close the distance. She leaned in first, slowly, so I could stop her. But I didn't. Our foreheads brushed. Her hand reached for mine. And then, a phone rang. The sharp sound shattered everything. She froze, pulled back just slightly. Her expression changed, just for a second. Something unreadable passed through her eyes. Then she reached for her bag. I stared at her, the spell broken but not gone. My heart was still racing, my skin still lit up. Who was calling her? Why did it feel like this moment, this exact second, mattered more than anything else? The screen lit up, casting a faint glow across her face. I saw the name, though I wasn't supposed to, Jason. She stared at it for a heartbeat too long. Then, she flipped the phone over, screen down, without a word. The silence that followed wasn't the same as before. It was denser, heavier, like something sacred had been interrupted, and we were both trying to pretend it hadn't. But I felt the shift, the pause in her breath, the flicker of doubt in her jaw before she said it. She didn't explain, and I didn't ask, because deep down, I already knew. There was someone. There had always been someone. Some shadow in her life I wasn't supposed to compete with. But the thing is, desire doesn't wait for permission. I looked at her then, really looked. Her lips were parted slightly, like she was about to speak. Her hair had fallen over one eye. Her fingers, still resting near the phone, were trembling just a little. She was torn. So was I? But neither of us moved. She finally broke the stillness. Her voice came out low, husky, almost inaudible. "I shouldn't have brought you here." The words didn't sting. They only made my skin buzz louder. "You did." She turned toward me, her expression shifting, vulnerability flickering behind that bold, sultry mask she wore so well. And in that split second, I realized this wasn't a game to her. Not really. It wasn't just thrill or temptation or even curiosity. It was risk. She was standing at the edge of something, heart thudding, scared to fall. "I don't cheat," she said, like she was reminding herself. I nodded slowly, not breaking eye contact. "Neither do I." A breath. A beat. And then, almost defiantly, her fingers brushed mine. The contact was small, innocent even, but it set off a firestorm inside me. Like my entire nervous system had been waiting for that exact touch. "I just wanted to feel something different," she whispered, her voice shaking now. "Something real." "You do," I said, barely able to speak through the heat rising in my chest. "You are." The air between us tightened again, heavy with unsaid things. She looked at me like I was both a lifeline and a mistake. Her pupils were wide now, her breathing shallow, her body leaning toward mine almost unconsciously. And then, she closed her eyes. "I dream about you," she confessed, "even when I try not to." My heart felt like it had stopped entirely. I leaned in, so slowly it felt like the world was holding its breath with me. I didn't touch her yet, just hovered, waiting. "If I kiss you," she said, eyes still closed, "I don't think I'll stop." My voice came out like a prayer. "Then don't." Her breath caught, and just as her lips were about to meet mine, her phone buzzed again, louder, longer, a cruel reminder. This time, she didn't flip it over. She picked it up. She stared at the name again, the screen glowing like an accusation. And I knew, this wasn't over. But it wasn't simple either. She turned to me, her voice barely a whisper. "Wait here." And then, without another word, she stepped out of the car. The door shut behind her, and I was left there, pulse racing, mouth dry, fingers still tingling from where she touched me. Alone, with nothing but her scent in the seat beside me, and the echo of everything she didn't say. The door clicked shut behind her, but it echoed like a slam in my chest. I watched her walk away, slow, steady steps into the night, her phone pressed to her ear, her free hand running through her hair like she was trying to ground herself. The moonlight caught the curve of her shoulder, the sway of her hips, the edge of vulnerability she didn't want me to see. I didn't move. I couldn't. The car was suddenly too quiet, too warm. The scent of her perfume clung to the air. Vanilla, something floral, something sharp underneath, like sweetness with teeth. It made my skin buzz, even without her beside me. I ran my hands over my face, trying to breathe, trying not to imagine what she was saying to him. Jason, was he her boyfriend? A fiancé? Just someone who still had a piece of her she hadn't figured out how to return? The way she'd looked at me, it didn't feel like cheating. It felt like breaking out of something, like gasping for air after holding your breath for too long. I leaned my head back against the seat, closing my eyes, and let the memory of her voice wash over me. I dream about you. What was I supposed to do with that? Minutes passed, maybe 10, maybe 30. Time melted in that space. I kept thinking she might not come back, that maybe the guilt would win, that maybe this was the part of the story where I got left behind, heart thudding, mouth still tasting a kiss that never landed. But then, the driver's door opened. She slid back into the seat like gravity had called her there. No explanation, no apology, just silence. Her hands were shaking a little as she gripped the steering wheel. She didn't start the car. She just stared ahead, her jaw tense, lips parted like she wanted to speak but couldn't find the right place to start. Then, without looking at me, she asked, "Do you want to know what I said to him?" I didn't answer right away. "Only if you want to tell me." She turned to me slowly, and for the first time that night, her eyes weren't guarded. I told him I couldn't talk, that I was somewhere I didn't want to leave. Something inside me twisted. My throat went dry. "I didn't lie," she added. And then, with that same aching slowness she always moved with, she reached over and touched my arm. Lightly, fingers trailing along my skin like she was memorizing the texture. "He thinks I'm with a friend," she said, voice thick. "I guess that's not totally wrong." I laughed, but it came out broken. "And you?" she asked, tilting her head, her hand still resting on my arm. "Are you going to tell anyone where you were tonight?" I met her eyes. No one would believe me. That made her smile. Just a flicker, a breath of mischief beneath all the weight. She turned back toward the windshield. The city still glittered below, so far away now it felt like another life. And then she whispered, "I'm scared." I didn't know if she meant of me, of what we were doing, of what would happen next. Maybe all of it. I leaned in, close enough for her hair to brush my cheek. "Me too," I said. She turned her face toward mine, slow, hesitant. And this time, I didn't wait. I kissed her, not like in the movies. Not dramatic or fast or perfect. It was slow, careful. Her lips were warm, hesitant at first, then hungry. Her hand moved to my jaw, fingers trembling, breath catching against my skin. There was a tremor in her whole body, like she wasn't sure if this was freedom or falling. But she didn't stop. Neither did I. Because for once, we were exactly where we wanted to be. And neither of us could pretend otherwise anymore. That kiss didn't feel like the start of something. It felt like a secret being opened, like we'd broken into a room we weren't supposed to find, and neither of us cared what we destroyed in the process. Her lips were soft, but insistent, like she was asking a question with every breath and daring me to answer with mine. We didn't rush it. We didn't have to. It was all in the pause, in the way her fingers brushed the side of my neck, in how our foreheads touched between each slow, trembling breath. We weren't just touching skin. We were reading each other, memorizing. The kind of kiss that left more unsaid than spoken, and said everything all at once. And when we finally pulled back, she didn't look away. Her eyes searched mine like she was still trying to decide whether she'd done something brave or something unforgivable. "I didn't plan this," she murmured, her voice barely holding together. "I don't think we planned anything tonight," I whispered. She let out a shaky laugh, but it was tinted with fear, guilt, hunger, things that don't live comfortably in the same body. "I've never done this before," she said. "Not even close." "Neither have I," I replied. And that was the truth. Whatever this was, this breaking of lines, this slow-motion unraveling, it was new, messy, beautiful in a way that only something dangerous could be. She leaned back in her seat, staring up at the ceiling like she needed something steady to hold on to. Her chest rose and fell with a kind of rhythm that felt almost desperate, like she was breathing for both of us now. "I used to think about you when I wasn't supposed to," she said suddenly. Family dinners. Holidays. Birthdays. You'd say something stupid and everyone would laugh, and I'd be sitting there trying not to stare. I swallowed hard. I used to leave early, she continued, just so I wouldn't start something I couldn't finish. Lena. I breathed, unsure what I was even trying to say. She turned to me, eyes glossy but defiant. You were always too young, too close, too inconvenient, but never unnoticeable. Her hand reached out, not for mine, but for my chest. Her palm rested just above my heart. I felt her touch like a current. Her fingers splayed out, as if she was checking to make sure I was real. And now? I asked, afraid of the answer. She bit her lip. Now I feel like I've already done it. I already crossed the line. I already let go. Do you want to go back? I asked. She shook her head before I'd even finished the question. No, she said, but I'm terrified of what happens next. I could feel it too. The edge of the cliff, the gravity of what we'd just done. But there was no turning around. Not after a kiss like that. I leaned forward again, slower this time, until our foreheads were pressed together, her breath skating across my lips. Then don't think about next, I whispered. Just think about right now. She nodded, eyes closed, breathing through her nose like she was holding back a flood. And just when I thought she might pull away, she climbed into my lap. No hesitation, no apology, just quiet surrender. Her knees on either side of me, her arms around my neck, her body pressing into mine like we'd spent years pretending we didn't want this, and had finally run out of reasons not to. She didn't kiss me this time. She just held me. And in that small, burning silence, I felt her fall apart in my arms. Piece by piece, she melted into me like she'd been waiting her whole life to collapse, but never had the permission. Until now. Her breath was uneven against my neck, hot and fast, as if every second she stayed in my arms made it harder to pretend she didn't want this. Her fingers dug lightly into the back of my shirt, gripping me like she thought I might disappear if she loosened her hold. I didn't move. I just let her be there, pressed against me, raw and trembling, as the moonlight filtered through the windshield and wrapped us in a kind of quiet neither of us dared to speak through. We stayed like that for what felt like forever. Not kissing, not moving, just existing. Skin against skin, heart against heart. No noise, no names. She finally spoke, voice muffled against my shoulder. I don't know what I'm doing. You're not alone, I said softly. She pulled back just enough to see my face. Her eyes were glassy, shining, rimmed with something close to guilt, but deeper than regret. I don't want to be careful right now, she said. Something in her cracked as she said it. A splintering of whatever armor she'd been holding on to. Her body tensed, then softened. Her eyes searched mine, almost as if asking for permission. But I wasn't the one in control. Not really. We were both spiraling in the same direction. We just didn't know where we'd land. You don't have to be, I whispered. Her fingers found my face then, trailing along my jaw, brushing my lower lip, like she was rediscovering every part of me she wasn't allowed to want. Then, slower than before, she kissed me again. But this kiss wasn't careful. It was desperate, starved. The kind of kiss that only happens after years of pretending it shouldn't. Every brush of her lips said I want to forget where I end and you begin. Every sigh between us pulled us deeper under. She pressed closer, and my hands found her waist, tentative at first, then bolder when she didn't flinch. Her skin was warm through her shirt. Her body fit against mine like she was made to be there. But it wasn't just physical. It was emotional, explosive, like the quiet ache between us had finally found its voice, and it was loud. You drive me insane, she whispered between kisses, with the way you look at me. You always pretended not to see it, I breathed. I saw everything, she said. Every single time. Her confession burned through me. She kissed my neck, slow and lingering, and I felt her breath catch when I tilted my head to give her more space. Her hands tangled in my hair. My fingers tightened at her hips. It wasn't about moving fast. It was about not holding back anymore. She pulled back for just a moment, looking at me with something like awe. I feel like I'm doing something I can't undo. You are, I said honestly. But maybe that's okay. Her lips parted. Her eyes flicked down, then up. Then she kissed me again. Harder, needier, and I knew, without a doubt, we'd just crossed a threshold neither of us could return from. She rested her forehead against mine again, breath ragged. I don't want this night to end. I swallowed. Then don't let it. And she smiled. Just a little, just enough. Come with me, she said. I blinked. Where? She didn't answer. She just climbed off me, grabbed her keys, and opened the door. Trust me. And in that moment, I did. Even though I had no idea where we were going. Only that wherever it was, I wasn't turning back. She didn't speak the whole way there. The drive was quiet again, but not like before. This silence was pulsing, alive, charged with the weight of everything we'd just said, everything we hadn't done yet. Her hand rested on the gear shift. Mine hovered close enough to feel the heat of her skin. Neither of us reached out. Not yet. We didn't need to. Not when the air between us already felt like touch. The city vanished behind us. We turned down a quiet street lined with trees that curled overhead, casting long shadows in the headlights. The kind of street that didn't get traffic. The kind of place where secrets could live. Her driveway curved up a small hill. A modest house. Lights off. Curtains drawn. She parked. Turned off the ignition. Then sat there, staring at the steering wheel like it might tell her what to do next. You okay? I asked gently. She let out a long breath. Not shaky, just waited. Yeah, she said. Just trying to decide if this is real. It is. She turned to me, eyes soft. Scared. Fierce. Then come inside before I talk myself out of it. We didn't hold hands walking to the door, but our shoulders brushed. That tiny contact felt louder than any embrace. Inside, her house was dim and quiet. A candle had been left burning in the kitchen, something spicy, smoky. The light flickered off the walls and cast her in gold. She kicked off her shoes, then turned to face me. For a moment, she just looked. At me. At us. Like she was trying to freeze this second in her mind before it changed everything. I haven't done this, she said. Not like this. Not with someone She stopped herself. You don't have to explain, I said. But she stepped forward anyway. Closer. Until her breath tickled my throat. I want to. Her fingers found the hem of my shirt. Not pulling, just curling there. Her gaze dropped. I used to think I was untouchable. Controlled. Like I'd outgrown chaos. She looked up again, eyes blazing. You feel like chaos. My heart slammed against my ribs. And then she kissed me. But this time, it was something new. Slower than hunger. Softer than urgency. Worshipful. Her hands moved up under my shirt. Tentative at first, then firmer as I exhaled. As if giving her permission to explore what she already knew she wanted. My skin rose to meet her palms like it had been waiting. I slid my hands around her waist, pulled her closer. Her body molded to mine. Her head tilted, lips parting under mine like they'd been made to respond. She led me down a hallway I barely noticed, my mind spinning with the smell of her, the feel of her, the way her fingers traced along the edge of my arm like she was reading a map only she could understand. Her bedroom door clicked softly behind us. But she didn't rush. She stood in front of me, quiet, her silhouette framed by the faint light spilling in from the hall. I used to fantasize about you, she whispered. Not in the obvious way. Then how? I asked, breathless. Her voice dropped. About what it would feel like to be looked at the way you look at me. That undid me. Because it wasn't lust in my gaze. It was something far more dangerous. Need. She stepped into me, slowly, with that same tension she always carried, like she was bracing for impact but hoping it would break her open. I cupped her face, brushed her hair back. You're not a fantasy, I said. You're the thing I couldn't let myself believe was real. Her lips quivered, then landed on mine again. And this time, we didn't stop. We moved like people who had waited too long, slow, aching, reverent. Every touch was a confession. Every breath, a surrender. She didn't rush. She peeled back the moment layer by layer, like unwrapping something sacred. Her hands were sure now, unafraid, guiding me like she already knew how this story would unfold, not in chaos, but in quiet revelation. And in that quiet, she let herself fall. Into me. Into us. Not with a crash, but with gravity. She tasted like courage and guilt. Her breath was hot against my skin, her voice a soft hum of need and disbelief. Our bodies pressed together like puzzle pieces that had been waiting for years to fit. And in every pause, every gaze, every whispered name, every stillness, I felt it. Not just the want, the meaning. Her hand gripped the back of my neck like she was afraid I'd disappear if she let go. I wasn't going anywhere. Not that night. Not after that. The walls of her bedroom blurred. The air was thick with heat, with scent, with silence. But it was the kind of silence you never want to escape. The kind that only exists when nothing else in the world matters. And when the rhythm of us finally slowed, when we collapsed into the tangle of sheets and breath and bare skin under cotton, she curled against me like she'd been trying to find this shape her whole life. I ran my fingers along her spine, slow, grounding strokes, and I felt her exhale, deeply, completely. "I don't know what this means," she said after a while, voice drowsy but alive. "It doesn't have to mean anything yet," I replied. "But it does," she whispered. "It already does." She tilted her face toward mine. No makeup, no performance, just Lena, undone, fearless in a way only people who've broken their own rules can be. "What happens tomorrow?" she asked. I didn't lie. "I don't know." "Will you leave?" I looked at her, brushed a thumb along her cheekbone. "Not unless you ask me to." She didn't answer. She just pulled the blanket higher, tugged me closer. And somewhere between the hum of her breath and the faint rustle of leaves outside her window, we drifted into sleep. Not like lovers in a fairy tale, but like people who knew they'd done something irreversible and honest. I woke before her. The light was soft through the curtains. Her hair was a mess of shadows across the pillow. One arm draped over me like she'd claimed this space in the night and wasn't ready to give it back. I watched her breathe, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I'd stolen something. I felt chosen. She stirred, eyes fluttering open. For a moment, she looked disoriented, then saw me, and smiled like she didn't regret a thing. "Still here?" she asked. "I told you," I murmured. "I'm not going anywhere." She stretched, warm and sleepy. Her body pressed into mine again, unconsciously, comfortably. "You weren't supposed to stay," she said. "Then why didn't you stop me?" She smiled again, softer now. "Because I didn't want to."